The NFL Combine is officially done, which means more mock drafts for all of us. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan. Today we are doing a live mock draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What do I mean by live? We will be role playing as the Steelers front office, going through this mock draft simulator, going through all of their selections. So while we're doing that, be sure to leave a comment. Let us know what you think of the picks and who you would want to see the Steelers take at each selection. And hit that subscribe button, tackle that bell to get notified when new videos come out. Now, Ryan, let's pull PFF up here. So let's scroll
Let's
up
get into it.
just a tad. So see who the past couple people were. Donovan Ezrake going to the Cardinals. Kenneth Grant to the Bengals. Jahad Campbell to the Seahawks. Derek Harmon to the Bucks. Emeka Egbuka going to the Denver Broncos here. So several different routes I think the Steelers could go in real time. They could trade back. I don't think they'd take a quarterback here. I think they're going to have to go through quarterback through free agency, as all their quarterbacks as of right now are free agents: Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and even Kyle Allen. They do
Yeah.
need running backs, and if you go look at their historical trend, is they actually really don't sign their number one running backs to a second contract. They let those guys go. So this is a serious spot, I think, for Omari and Hampton, but this is also a very deep rushing running back class. So uh, to me, I will say, just looking at their depth chart, also, it's like they just need more offensive weapons, no matter who the quarterback's
Yeah.
going to be. And Luther Burden's right there. I don't know what
Yeah.
your thoughts are.
I was going to say Luther Burden. Matthew Golden has been a hot riser here as of late. And then Omari and Hampton. It really kind of depends. George Pickens is more of that outside threat. I think Luther Burden would thrive in that slot role, although I think Matthew Golden would do pretty well in that role as well. And then Omari and Hampton, I'm just a big fan of him all around. So
Yeah.
between those three, Luther Burden is probably the highest rated prospect. But Matthew Golden is hot on his heels on that one. So
It's with Golden too. He did play 376 snaps out wide, but 118 snaps in the slot. So I
yeah,
could see them maybe moving around a little bit. I'm trying to think with the Arthur Smith offense, it's a kind of what route he'd end up going. Even as a Falcons fan, I'm still trying to figure out Arthur Smith's
let's
offense.
do let's do Luther Burden. I
I
think
think that
yeah,
is a good
I
option.
there's a couple options there, but I think Luther Burden is the one
Yeah.
that you go with. And then also too, like we've been doing these. You look at Dylan Sampson, Caleb Johnson, some of the running backs there in the second round might be really good value. So you have Cam Scatterbo or Scatterbo. There's Dylan Sampson. There's Caleb Johnson. Personally, I like Caleb Johnson the best out of the three. Scatterbo is probably the hottest name just because of his performances there. But
I'm curious how he's going to translate to the NFL. I think he'll be a good number 2 running back just with his motor that he's got. But if the Steelers are looking for a guy that can come in and play a majority of those snaps and those
the
down.
the
Uh,
other one here would be Darian Porter. He'd be an outside corner. There's a big drop off at corner at like kind of at the end of the fourth. Um, so I think that's one spot to consider here also.
yeah, but you do start to get to like some of these guys can be that bell cow pack. Like I could see Dylan
Yeah.
Sampson, Caleb Johnson coming in. I would almost rather go Caleb Johnson here or
Let's do
another
Caleb.
running back. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do Caleb Johnson. I feel like he's a guy that kind of goes under the radar just because that Iowa offensive line was so good that he doesn't have a ton of like yards after contact or anything. But I think his skill set and his just explosive capabilities at 6 foot 220,
Yeah.
I think will translate to the NFL really well. So
Yeah.
also too, you look at him replacing Najee Harris, and I think that's a pretty solid player comp for Caleb Johnson there at the
Yeah.
NFL level.
Exactly. So, and that's assuming that they're not going to re-sign Najee Harris. I don't believe they are
Yeah,
going to though. So
yeah.
here's another one. If they they have invested in the offensive line a decent bit over the past couple years. I mean, they drafted Broderick Jones in 23. They have Zach Frazier, who they drafted last year as center. Even McCormick and Fatanu were on their rookie years last year. So I bring that up. I mean, maybe there's some interesting offensive linemen they could take here, like Milam, Rutledge, Charles Grant, Anthony Belson. But Marcus Bowe is also there as well. But I bring that point up. It's like I don't think they'd go offensive lineman here. This would be more, I think, to your point, Ryan, of maybe if they'd want to go DB, maybe a
Yeah.
sneaky defensive tackle spot, as guys like Cam Hayward, he's 36 now, 37. Ogunjobi is also on the other side of 30 as well. If you're just trying to think of just like other routes that they could end up going, or maybe they double dip at the receiver spot, like they need just a lot of weapons.
I think they could potentially go actually with an offensive lineman here. I think you look Dan Moore as a free agent. So like I saw Anthony Belton on the board. That might be a decent fit there. They got Broderick Jones a couple years ago in the first round, and he's primarily been on that right side, I believe. And so getting some tackle depth there. I do think Anthony Belton could also kick into guard. They did invest in Troy Fatanu, and then what was the kid's name from West Virginia last year?
Zach Frazier,
Zach
who's the
Frazier.
center. Yeah.
Yeah. Last year. So they have invested a little bit there. Dorian Strong is the highest rated corner there. We can look at safety and corner. Here. Yeah, Dorian Strong, Jacob Parrish. I feel like they might get better value at the next pick at
Okay.
corner. I think I am kind of leaning offensive line. If you want to go Wyatt Milam, continue the West Virginia bloodline there. Or if you want to go with Tate Ratledge, I think that either of those are good options.
Let's go Milam here because
Okay.
he's probably going to kick in the left guard. They do have Isaac Samalu, yes. James Daniels, a free agent, but he's also coming off an Achilles tear. Mason
Yeah.
McCormick was a rookie from last year, so keep developing that offensive line side of it. And this here, so let's see kind of what the cornerback
Ooh.
situation is. Unless did we miss out on all the
We
main
might have
ones?
missed. We might have missed. You have Zy Alexander there as an outside corner. Elijah Huzzy and Quincy Riley are pretty decent slot corners as well. Just a little bit smaller
I
than
think
Zy Alexander.
that could be an area that they can make. I mean, they have Cameron Sutton though as their nickel, and so
Yeah.
he's a free agent though, but they're going to bring him back. I'm not saying anything about that. And so Dante Jackson's a free agent also. So I think corner would be the ideal spot to go here, but I'm just not really seeing names.
Zy
Um,
Alexander's a good player. He's going to primarily play on the outside, so he could be opposite of Joey Porter, and then you have Cameron Sutton as your nickel.
Let's do
But
that. Let's get some depth here
okay,
because Dante Jackson's a free agent. They do have Corey Trice, but he's a seventh round pick from 23, and so I think get some good outside corner depth there. Because to be honest, like they're going to keep Minka. We like Minka. Cameron Sutton also too. We like Cameron Sutton as well.
yeah,
And so I think that's going to be a good route for them to go to. So four more picks left here, picking at 163. We've done receiver, we've done running back,
back
and we've done
tackle and
interior. I think this could be an area where we do go on the defensive interior. I could see that being one, or maybe even linebacker as well.
let's see. Um, Jaw Joyner, I think, would be an interesting one. Cody Simon and Cody Lindenberg I think, would be good fits. Danny Stutzman might be a little too big. Also, Landon Roberts is a free agent for them. And he's also, I think, he's in his early 30s now, so he might not be brought back. So linebacker might be a spot where we go. Jay Higgins is a good linebacker. They could get him maybe a little bit later. Although they're not picking again until 225. So I feel like that would be I don't think he'll be at 225. So that could be an interesting pick there as well.
Let's see here. What also linebacker depth do they need? They do have a lot of depth from guys that they've drafted in the past, like Peyton Wilson last year, for example, DeMarvin Leal. Not saying
That's
these
true.
guys are great, but just still young depth guys
Well,
on
Peyton
rookie
Wilson
contracts.
was really good in his rookie season.
Yeah.
Um,
So I will say I am almost still leaning to see what defensive interior guys. Simon
you have
Barrow,
Simeon Barrow.
Simeon
Um,
Barrow.
yeah, 6'3", 290. Uh, Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, actually, he had a really good combine. And so he might be rising up some draft boards there. Kind of like more of a much bigger edge player. Tonka Hemingway, Tim Smith from Alabama has played a lot there over the last few years. Um, I I think there's a lot of interesting options here.
Let's do let's do Tim Smith. We haven't done Tim
Okay.
Smith yet. I know like there's the PFF ranking, but my also thought process, if you're trying to also keep on improving this defensive side of the ball. I mean, you're gonna have TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. I mean, those guys are studs, but there's gonna be a time you got to start preparing for life after these guys. And you go look at the
Yeah.
depth of the defensive line outside of these top guys. Um, it is a little scarce, just overall. So start to maybe try and find some good value here. So 225 we're picking at, correct?
Yeah, 225. I do think you could potentially look at like a developmental quarterback spot, although you might have
Yeah.
missed the boat on that at this point. Brady Cook would be the next one. Max Brosmer had a decent season as well. So
Yeah.
I think that could be a potential developmental one. Both those guys, I think, have like the physical traits that you're looking for, just not quite the football acumen or the college production that you
We're
might
picking
want.
again here in 6 picks.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go with Max Brosmer.
Okay.
Let's go with that.
I like him a little bit better than Brady Cook,
Yeah,
anyways.
same,
So
same. So I think here could be a sneaky receivers. I think Jimmy Horn would be interesting. Maybe trying to find some late round value because they also just need more receivers as well to kind of fit their system.
okay.
Um, who are some
Yeah,
other
that would
guys here?
be good.
I also think too. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Jimmy Horn would complement Pickens better than a
Yeah.
guy like
Uh,
Lejonte Wester.
yeah. Well, I think they're
Yeah,
both smaller guys. But yeah, I
okay,
do think too, having already drafted Luther Burden is like a Debo Samuel, like borderline gadget guy, but he can still line up in the slot and run routes. But I do think you would have a lot of speed on the field with the Jimmy Horn, Luther
yeah,
Burden, in like Calvin Austin, George Pickens, Pat Fryermuth. So I think that would be very interesting if you want to go
perfect.
Jimmy Horn.
Yep,
All
let's
right.
do that. And then we got one more pick left here. Any spots? I'm trying to remember. I do just think like skill position players is a need that they really have. They've
Yeah.
invested a bunch already on the offensive line, as we talked about, but we did add Wyatt Milam. We got their cornerback as well. We got defensive
Mhm.
interior. I think just trying to go best player available. I mean, we maybe could go linebacker here as just like
Yeah, we
another
could
area.
snag Jalen Walker,
Good
Gaten
special teams
Berndahl.
guy,
Uh, yeah.
Kyron Lacey. He'll be available around here.
I
That's
don't think anybody's drafted Kyron Lacy.
I don't think so either. So
Um, could go Dan Jackson, get another safety. I think he's just a flyer, but he's going to be a high effort player. Just
what
had a really good Senior Bowl process, really good career there at Georgia. Kind of, I believe he's a former walk on.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, but I also think too he could be a good special teams guy. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's go that route.
Okay.
And I think for the Steelers, we're going to learn a lot more once we know who their starting quarterback's going to be. That's for every
Yeah.
team. That's
Well,
priority number one to figure that out. But from there, though, then it's going to be giving them weapons. And I think in this draft,
yeah.
kind of similar to the Broncos who pick right before them, is it's just in a very unique spot because every team you're kind of thinking defense, what defensive players are available. That's where you really want to focus on these needs because this class is so good. Where you can go find some diamonds in the rough. And like so if you don't like Caleb Johnson at 53, Dylan Sampson was available, Quinton Judkins was available, Cam Scattaboo, Travian
Yeah.
Henderson. So I think there's a lot of other guys that they could end up taking there. And we've seen them do this in the past too. If you don't like that order, like we've seen them do that in the past when they drafted. They went Najee Harris about the same pick here, I think 21st overall, and then went Pat Fryermuth. Another I'm pretty sure he was Iowa too, as well.
No,
Or is he
Pat
Penn
Fryermuth
State?
was Penn State. Yeah, he was
Oh,
Penn State.
that's like the
Well,
Iowa of the Northeast. So I could see them going this route where they just like, no, we want to double dip on youth and skill position players.
yeah, no, and I do think too, like you said, we'll know a lot more once we figure out who their quarterback is. The biggest thing here is I don't think that they're going to be able to get a quarterback. Now, there are a lot of rumors of Shedeur falling out of the top 10, so maybe they make a move up uh for him then. But I do think if you go look, just build this roster, and then maybe you can go and trade for a veteran in next year's offseason, or maybe you can make a trade and move up and snag a guy in next year's draft. And so I think that's kind of the approach that they have to take. They do take Max Brosmer there at 225, but with that being said, that's a 7th round pick. There's very low expectations for him to come in and actually be a contributor. So
Exactly.
with that being said, let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of the Steelers mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? Other than that, we'll see you guys next time.